conditioning, so the door is always open. And bees would come in, and our kids would freak out, and Steve would just go, whack! And that's how he took care of our bee population. And we didn't know the difference between a bee and a wasp. We didn't know anything. But over the years, Steve got to work with a beekeeper named Ron, who builds these incredible beehives in the shape of a dodecahedron, which is a 12-sided figure. And they look like Brancusi sculptures. And he's one of the few beekeepers in the county, and maybe in New York State, who has not lost all of his bees. He's lost about 50%. So over time, we've learned about colony collapse disorder, where billions of bees around the world have died. And there are a lot of theories about why they've died, and pesticide, fungicide. They're tired, they're being poor diet, they're being transported to take care of monoculture. But in the meantime, there are dire warnings that if the bees die, we die. So there have been many, many people trying to save the bees in different ways. And maybe MB can talk later about what she's going to be doing of her orchard with Steve. But anyway, Steve found this story about Aristeias, who's a minor god, a minor Greek god. And he's going to tell you the story about how he lost his bees.
Actually, my friend Ron Rhodope, he said, this is going to become your mission. This figuring out how to bring this ancient myth into the present. And that's one of the beautiful things about myths. Myths renew themselves, they disappear, they rearrange themselves, and there's something special about myths. They sort of live in a different time. Some have called it a time that really is laden with the past and also involves the future. One of my favorite sayings, and I hope that you'll see why I say this now, Picasso had to fight his bulls, and we all have to fight our bulls in a way. Not just in the physical sense of corrida and a bullfight, but you have to overcome your bull. I have to overcome my bull, that's for sure. And in this wonderful little book called Picasso and the Bull, at the very end, this guy says something. I don't think he knows how important it is to me, but he said, let me read it to you. He said, and I love to put my glasses on, it makes me feel important. I'm like the professor who can never find them. The kids always tell me they're on your neck. He says, the dawn of classical mythology rises from the blood of a dead bull. The dawn of classical mythology rises from the blood of a dead bull. Well, as Susie said, I'm going to tell you the story about Aristeias, who to the Greeks was a minor god, but later Virgil, who wrote the Georgics, which is our four lengthy poems about agriculture and beekeeping at the end, tells this story about Aristeias. But I want to set the scene a little bit. One of my favorite myths is about the queen of Thrace, whose name was Rhodope. Rhodope was married to King Haemus. And King Haemus and Rhodope were so fond of each other that they lovingly called each other Hera and Zeus. And they would go about all day long, and he would call her Hera, and she would say, yes, my Zeus. Until one day, Hera and Zeus heard about this and got so angry that they turned Rhodope into a mountain chain, and they turned Haemus into a mountain chain, which became the Balkan Mountains. So we have a setting here, the Rhodopes and Thrace. And I have to take you to the next step. Apollo, the sun god. Apollo was, thank you, yes. Apollo was out one day and he saw Cyrene. Now Cyrene was taking care of her father's herds, and a lion came along. and Cyrene wrestled with the lion, and she slayed the lion. And he was so impressed with her that he stole her away, took her to Libya, and with her had 2 children, and one of the children was Aristeias. Aristeias, it said, had the gift. He had the gift of, for the first time, making cheese from his flocks, from sheep, from goats, and from the cattle. He also had the gift of curing olives. But the most important gift was beekeeping, and he loved his bees more than anything. And in order to set the scene here, I'm going to ask one of my friends to imagine, and I'm going to ask you to imagine Aristeias out with his flocks, out in the field, perhaps playing a flute or a cavall. Now, this should have been really one of the happiest days almost in the world, because it was the day that Orpheus was going to marry Euridice. And while Euridice was getting ready for the wedding down in the village, the folk were dancing, and there was Orpheus. Aristeias, hearing the music, began to go towards the village when he caught sight of Euridice. Never had he seen a more beautiful young woman, and he began to pursue her. She, not knowing who Aristeias was, began to run, and he began to run after her. He caught, just as he was about to catch her, she disappeared. For that was that fatal moment where she was bitten by a snake. Some say she suffered the bites of 100,000 bees in that snake venom, and she disappeared into the underworld. He began to call, "Where are you? Where are you, young lady? Where did you go?" There was no answer. Distraught, he returned back to his bees to find that they were all gone. All of his bees were dead. He began to cry, and he began to suffer a loss that only Orpheus could know. Not knowing what to do, Aristeias began to seek out his mother. Now Cyrene had become a water nymph and lived at the bottom of a river, and she was surrounded by young rusalki, spirits, water spirits, who tended to her during the day. Aristeias found himself at the edge, the bank of the river where his mother lived, and down under the water, the nymphs were singing, and one of them looked up and saw Aristeias at the banks crying. She told Cyrene, "Cyrene, your son is up there. He's crying. What should we do?" She said, "Make space. Let him come down. He'll be safe down here. Let's find out what's going on." And they opened up the river, and he was able to enter, and he told his mother what was wrong. He said, "I don't know, but I went back to my bees. All of them were dead. They were all gone. What should I do? I love my bees more than anything. And she said, well, there's only one who can tell us what happened and what we are to do. But he only comes home at noontime to take a rest. His name is Proteus. He is the son of Poseidon. And he has the gift of seeing. But he is also a shapeshifter. And the only way you can find out what happened is to chain him up and hold him as he goes through many, many forms. He will become a lion, a dragon, a serpent, a tiger. He'll become fire and ice. But you must not let go. When he returns to his original form, he is bound to tell you what has happened. Proteus said to Aristeias, "You fool! Don't you know what you've done?" Aristeias did not know. He said, You have deprived the gods of the music of Orpheus, because Orpheus will no longer create songs, will no longer sing. He has gone to the underworld in search of his beloved, Euridice, whom you tried to take from him. And Aristeias asked, what can I do? He said, there's only one thing you can do. You must go back to your herds. You must take 4 of your most beautiful heifers and 4 of your most powerful bulls and 1 black sheep and 1 white sheep, and you must sacrifice them. The sheep will be for Euridice and for Orpheus. But then you must leave them there for 9 days and return after 9 days. Aristeias went back to his herds. He found the most beautiful heifers and the most beautiful bulls and a black sheep and a white sheep. And he took them and he sacrificed them and he left them for 9 days. After 9 days, he returned to find bees flowing forth from the carcasses of the dead animals. He realized what he had done, and he decided it was time. It was time for him to teach human beings how to tend cattle and make cheese, how to raise olives and cure them, but most importantly, how to take care of the bees. He taught this to the humans, and then he disappeared. He disappeared into the Rhodope Mountains. I'm going to invite you up to dance with us a Pravo Horo.